we are on a hike. We are here at the very cool Hatun Machay, or the Stone Forest. I've got my rock climbing shoes and chalk bag. I'm hoping there's some bouldering. And look who's hiking. She's getting her ankle to work. She's got her trekking poles and her brace, and it's working. It's a little sore, a little grumpy, but she's out here doing it. I think that's helping it get stronger. Another thing that's supposed to be here is there are cave paintings, and we're coming up on one of the caves right now. All right, let's check this place out. This is gonna be a neat place to explore. All right, I've been bouldering around here, doing some rock climbing, but I can tell you this spot, Hatun Machay, is worth a stop. We're at 14,000 feet. It's kind of cool, but when you're sitting here on these beautiful rock ledges and the sun is just baking down on us, it is like the perfect temperature. And these rocks are just magical. They're just these mazes of these beautiful rocks. All right, we have discovered this secondary cave up here that is just full of rock art, but there's this whole band behind me. There's all these shapes. There's handprints that look like the Anasazi handprints, but they're actually like carved in. There's this line here, and it's got 11 squares. Some of them stick out, some of them stick in. And there's 11 outies, 11 innies, and we're wondering if it's some sort of an ancient calendar. But then also above, higher up, we're seeing crosses scratched in. So I don't know if that signifies, you know, when maybe the Spanish or somebody, Christians came here and they wanted to put their symbol higher than the others. So I don't know, I'm reading into all this. I really don't know. I studied a little bit of ancient Native American art in college, and this stuff fascinates me. I love seeing it. I love thinking about what these people might have been trying to tell me by these drawings and scratchings in the wall. But it's pretty impressive. I'm glad I'm here. This is fun. And once again, travel shows you how much you just don't know. So I got to learn about this next.
We have been traveling in Peru for almost a month now, and it is one of the most beautiful places that we have ever been. But the reality of this place is that it's also one of the hardest places that we have ever traveled. We're having a hard time finding water. We've run our tank dry a couple of times here, and it's just tricky to find potable water to put in the van. It's tricky to find showers. The wild camping here has been amazing. The roads are so rough and windy, and they go from dirt to concrete, and there's huge potholes. And in fact, yesterday we drove 7 hours to go less than 100 miles. So it's just been really intense driving through Peru. But last night we found this amazing campground and splurged, and they had hot water showers, which we haven't had in a long time. They had a restaurant where we got breakfast and dinner both served, and it's just been wonderful. Now if we can just find groceries, we will be back resupplied and ready to tackle the second half of Peru. You know, the Pan Am, it's no joke. It's hard at times, but man, we are loving it.
So we've been driving a lot of steep mountain passes lately, really putting our brakes to the test. Well, the other morning we left a campground. I was going over a little rise and I was dropping down the other side. I just put on the brakes gently. When I let off, I could feel the van pulling to the right. I was like, whoa, that doesn't feel right. I then hit the brakes again, it went away, it drove normal, and then I started testing it. And occasionally, like maybe 5-6 times a day, it didn't happen all that often, I would feel this pull to the right. And I kind of figured out the brakes were, when they were engaging, then they weren't releasing. And I took the brakes apart, I checked the calipers, and the pins that the caliper slides on, one of them was kind of badly corroded. I took it apart, I cleaned it, I lubricated as best I could. And now we've driven 3-4 more days on it, and it's still binding up a little bit. And so we have come here to this Mercedes shop here in Peru, up in the mountains. We're at 14,000 feet. And we're getting them to look at it. And I think what they're gonna say is, I'm either gonna need the new sliders that the caliper goes on, but I think knowing Mercedes, they're gonna wanna replace the whole caliper. So I've got one of their technicians looking at it now. I'm usually great at doing brake jobs on our vans and cars. I enjoy doing that kind of maintenance and keeping them up, but I wanna make sure that they're working properly and I don't burn up my brakes and get into a bad situation here in Peru, where there's tons of mountains and very steep roads with big consequences. So we're here at Villa Pasco, Peru, getting it looked at here at a Mercedes shop. And that is one of the best things about having a Mercedes-Benz vehicle, is that they have a global parts network. Now, you know, like we broke our axle in Alaska, it was a little hard to find an axle, but literally it took us 48 hours to get one sent on an air freight shipment up. And now we're here in very rural, mountainous Peru, and we're getting our brakes taken care of. So a lot of people told me in comments on that Alaska video that if I would have had an American vehicle, I would have been out of there in no time and it would have been an easy fix. And maybe so, but would have I had the same turnaround with a Chevy truck or a Ford or whatever it might be in rural Peru? So, you know, no matter what vehicle you have, you're gonna have places where it's gonna be easy to find parts, and you're gonna have places where it's difficult to find parts. But working with a brand like Mercedes, you have a global parts network, and these vans are used all around the world, and I can be somewhere like Peru and hopefully get it ironed out relatively quickly. Now, with that said, these guys might have to order a part for me. I don't know yet. If they do, it can't be more than a day or two out, and we'll be back in business. Knock on wood on the day or two out part. Let's go see what's going on. Now, it's pretty interesting here in Peru because you don't see hardly any Mercedes cars. I mean, maybe in Lima and whatnot, they have them. But out here in the mountains, it is all big Mercedes trucks and buses, and that's what's getting serviced here. And luckily, the Sprinter vans fall into the truck segment, and they can work on those too here. Okay, we've been here about 3 hours at Dive Motor, which is the Mercedes chain that goes all throughout Peru. And they fixed my van. They said they didn't need to order any parts. They pulled the caliper apart. They cleaned the slide pin. There's a pin and some bolts in there that the caliper slides on, and it has been binding. And actually, I knew that. That's what I was hoping they would do, is have a better way to clean some corrosion that had built up on that pin. And they didn't have a way to enter my van into their system since it's a US van and we're in Peru. So they said, complimentary. Thank you so much for enjoying our country, and this service is on the house. And I was like, wow, I'm blown away. That was probably the first time I have gotten out of a Mercedes dealership without paying a single penny, which I always get great service at Mercedes and it's worth it, but this was above and beyond. These guys are amazing. And I've damaged my brake sensor, and they have ordered the part, and it's gonna be waiting for us in Cusco when we go south. I am a totally happy, pleased Mercedes-Benz owner at this point, and feel like I got great service, and we are off, and hopefully we're done with brake problems for a little while. All right, we are off to the next place, and if it's anything like what I've seen online, this is gonna be really cool. So let's get out of here. Okay, and as if getting my van serviced for free wasn't awesome enough, these guys gave us free bananas. The guys back there in the shop had a massive, like a big bunch of bananas, and they said, oh, you can't leave here without bananas. So we have bananas for the road. Stoked. All right, we tried to make it to our next stop. closed at 5. We were there at 5:01. And this might be the one place we found in Latin America where they're on time. But they were closed. We couldn't drive in to where we wanted to camp back in this beautiful wild place, which hopefully we're going to check out in the morning. And now some really nice people were gracious enough to let us camp right behind this hostel in this kind of little tourist zone. A lot of the buildings seem like they're half built. It's a little weird, but it'll be a fine place for us to spend the night here. And this is what I love about being down here, is just the interesting situations you get in, and it puts you in places that you couldn't have ever even imagined. I'm about to get eaten by a dog. It's okay, Perro. Perro. It's okay. Luckily, I talked sweet to him, and he kind of chilled out, and I think he's gone back to looking after the llama that he was guarding. But just a reminder to me that I am a visitor here, and I don't entirely know what is going on most of the time. And in this case, maybe I should steer clear of this guy and his space and let him and his llama do whatever they were doing before I disturbed them. Oh boy, that felt close.
Máquina de soldar malogrado, compramos motores malogrados, compramos fierro, compramos agarras, fierro, máquina, molino, zapato, cocina, balance, máquina, molino, compramos agarras, cocina, zapatos, compramos.
We are out here at Bosque de Piedras. This is the stone forest. This is a place that I just found off of iOverlander, and it is super cool. Right behind me here is the elephant. This rock formation looks like an elephant with its trunk hanging down, and it's pretty spectacular. Over here behind me is the angel. We just saw the alpaca, and there's a bunch of formations out here that look like various creatures. This is a really cool place. The rocks are just jutting up from this plains, and this is the kind of place I could get lost in for days. This is a cool place, the stone forest. Good morning, Peru, and specifically the Pyramid of Kuramba. We're here in an Incan ruin that used to be a great Incan city up here on the top of this mountain. And there is a pyramid here where they used to perform sacrifices and rituals. And there's been mummies found over here in these mountains. I read too that this is a place where they would melt gold and silver. And this was an important complex that kind of worked in conjunction with Machu Picchu, which isn't that far away. We saw this as we were driving south down Peru 3, and it said archaeological site. It was listed in iOverlander as a place we could possibly camp. So we pulled in. There was a caretaker here last night, and he said, no problem, you guys can camp here all you want. We had a wonderful night here last night. Okay, I'm up here on the summit of the Pyramid of Kuramba. You can see our vans down here. We parked right here underneath it. The views from up here are just commanding. All of the Andes wrapping out here before you. It's a little hazy right now, but there's some big peaks over here in the distance. And it's said that under my feet right now, there is some sort of a tomb or a cave of sorts built into this pyramid. I don't know from my research if they have exhumed anything from this. This structure of the pyramid is partially restored, and it's said that there is a tomb within the center of this. Now, all around here on the surrounding countryside, you'll see these old walls and old parts of old buildings. And this big central area right behind me is probably where they raised crops. And there is a trail marker over here that says Camino Inca, the Inca Trail. These communities in the Inca were connected, and probably the people from here went to Machu Picchu and vice versa. That's where we're headed. We're working our way to Machu Picchu next, and there is a lot of great stuff to do along here in this part of Peru. Right here, I'm sitting on one of the ancient walls. I assume this was maybe a building of sorts that maybe people lived in. It's rather large. It has maybe 3-foot thick walls of just pure stone. Amazingly constructed, you know, to last this long. I was reading that this place was discovered in the 16th century, so it was even older than that. I also learned that the Inca loved to build these villages high atop the mountains is because that's where the rain was. Now we're in a semi-arid environment here, and if you imagine the warm air comes across, it hits the mountains and it rains like it does in so many parts of the world, but the rain might not make it all the way into the lower valleys. So by having your farmlands and your homes up high like this, one, it's a little cooler, and two, you capture that rain and you're able to grow more crops. So I think that's pretty smart. Really interesting how they made their lives here in the mountains. I think just for my taste, they picked a great place to live. It is just beautiful up here, and I'm really having a blast exploring this part of Peru. All right, we are exploring Cusco today. What a cool town. I'm really impressed. It has a lot of the touristy stuff, but also just beautiful architecture. It's very clean, very modern. It's a nice stop. And that's it for this episode. And until next time, I hope I see you somewhere over the horizon.